I am welcoming to the show Crashing Wayward Axeman, former Roxx Gang, LA Guns, and Electric Radio King six-string slinger and guitar guru, Mr. Stacey David Blades. Welcome to the show, Stacey. How are you?
Hi, Guido. Good to be on here. A
Hey, you don't,
fellow Canuck.
fellow Canuck. Yeah, you don't mind if it doesn't bother you when somebody says Mr., does it?
No, no.
Sir?
Here you go. You get older, they start, the younger kids start calling. Here you go, sir.
Hey, so speaking of Canuck, you're
Yeah.
born a Calgarian, you're raised
Yep.
a Torontonian.
Uh-huh.
Then you go Los Angeles on us. You travel the world, and you got a lot of miles on your guitars, and you end up settling in Las Vegas. How did
Yeah.
you how did you
Well,
land in Sin City?
I was actually in Florida for 8 years because that's where
Florida.
Roxx Gang. So I went from Toronto to St. Petersburg, Clearwater, which was complete, I was like, whoa, I am not in Kansas anymore. I mean, that was culture shock, going from big city to, Clearwater, St. Pete's it's very rural. It's not like it's a small place, beach town, but you get inside from the beach area. It's very, southern, very southern, and having long black hair in the early 90s and skinny jeans. It's like, it was like, you didn't walk around out like that too often, you know.
They knew you weren't local.
So 8 years there. Then I moved to LA. So it was LA for 14 years, and then Vegas now almost 10 years.
So you call it home? Vegas is home?
Yeah, it's just like everybody's mass exiting California. So yeah, it's home for now. It's easy. It's a great city. It's really grown. She's in the last 2-3 years, it's just blown up. I mean, there's like 2 million people here now.
I was gonna say, you've been there for a while. What's the
Yeah.
biggest change you've seen in Vegas?
Traffic.
But you're used to that from Toronto.
Yeah, in LA too. I mean, it'll never be as bad as LA, but what's cool is that Vegas it's becoming a real city. We got the Raiders now with Allegiant Stadium. We got the Golden Knights. There's just so much being built here, and it's just the city's just expanding. It's becoming a little bit more diverse, which is nice because it wasn't like that, when I moved here. So there's a lot of great things to do. It just used to be the Strip, and that was it. And it's like there's so much more to the city outside of the Strip. And that's what I'm finally starting to see some cool areas outside of that, because I never go down there unless I have to.
I think that's what everybody thinks, right? Las Vegas, the Strip.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
my mom, I haven't been to Vegas. My mom, who's 86, she's been to Vegas, but I haven't been to Vegas. And she reminds me quite often. So,
It's a cool city. There's a ton of stuff to do, So it's got a cool vibe where it's not just like Las Vegas. It's like it's like kind of real city now. So
hey, so are you noticing the LA crowd moving to Vegas?
oh, there's so many people from not just LA, just California, period, that are moving. But it's it's funny, when I go back to LA, it's like, I never thought I would leave there. That was like home. I was gonna be buried in LA. And when I go back, it's changed so much, and it's so overcrowded, and it's just everything is just a beating. Just being there, just getting around and parking and just everyday functions there. And I think a lot of people got to a point where they got fed up with that, and just the cost of living is ridiculous.
Oh, really?
When the gas spike thing happened, it was like $7 a gallon of gas. I mean, I know it's a high up in Canada, but it's like, and the rents for what you get there, it's just like in Vegas. I think that's why, and the secret got out. It's just like, oh, you can, uh, rent a house for like, under $2,000, a month,
in
You can't
Bays.
even get a one-bedroom apartment for it in LA for that.
Sounds like it does sound like Toronto.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, it's nice. I mean, I live in a golf course gated community in a 4-bedroom house for like $2,000 a month.
Nice.
It's like you ain't getting that in LA.
Hey, you were down here in Toronto last October, I think, right?
Yeah.
October
Yeah.
2022.
Yeah.
And in one of your Instagram shares, and anybody who's not following Stacey on Instagram, if you go and you search Stacey David Blades, follow Stacey. I'm gonna have that in the podcast notes because I know when we're talking, it's a lot for people to
Yeah.
write and listen. But one of your posts, you were
Mhm.
in the harborfront area of Toronto, which is it's a beautiful area.
Yeah.
But you said this, you said it's got a very cool Chicago/New York City vibe. And I was thinking to myself, what exactly is what exactly is that vibe? And didn't Toronto have it before?
I think it always did. I remember, going. There was a big gap where it was like I had been to Toronto, and I just was blown away that I didn't even recognize it, like the downtown area, which was always big, but then it was like it just became this expansive with all the condos on the lakes front and everything like that. And wow, it reminded me a lot of Chicago. Um, it's always been a great city, the diversity, the culture. I think it's more so amplified now.
Hmm.
But yeah, I've noticed, having grown up there as well. Um, but there was a gap between 2011 to 2019. So there was 8 years I hadn't been there, and I remember when I went in 2019, I was just floored. I was like, "Where did all this come from?"
Yeah, it's probably that area is one of the more attractive things in Toronto these days.
Yeah,
So
really cool. Yeah, I got a buddy that lives right down there that I grew up with. That's why I was down there that night.
yeah,
And
right on.
he lives right, well, one of those tall buildings right on the harbor front there. So we just walked down to that Amsterdam, I think the bar was called.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
That's right. Now, you grew up in Toronto, and I'm just wondering, when little Stacey David Blades left Toronto, when your
Mhm.
journey started,
Yeah.
did he envision the journey that you've gone on? I mean, was it a
So
dream to do what you've done, and did the dream come true? Are you still living the dream?
yeah, I look back, on the things I've accomplished beyond my wildest dreams. I think it started where it was like, I'm very proud of where I came from, but I always envisioned myself. My goal was to make it as an American musician.
Hmm.
So when I got the opportunity to move to the States and join Roxx Gang, that was like, okay, that was goal number one, right? I was just fixated on that goal. It was just like, oh wow, it's just like, okay, you pulled this off. So you were kind of in it. You don't really see it, but it's just like, oh right, here we go. Um, Looking back on those 8 years in Florida, it was very hard. I was expecting a different outcome from that band. Granted, the musical climate completely changed in the matter of the first 6 or 8 months that I joined that band, and it was like, oh, I was so excited, and like here, you just like you're running 100 miles an hour, and then all of a sudden, boom, you just hit that wall. Like, what just happened? Um, so the fact I think I lasted 8 years was like really showed my commitment to, you know, pushing forward, pushing for something else. And when I moved to Los Angeles from there, that was kind of the best thing I really did. And I was scared shitless. I was like, what's next? But I'm kind of a guy where I'm really like I visualize, and because I visualize, I'm able to manifest, a lot of things, because I focus on just good things are going to happen, perseverance. So um, after being in LA for like a couple of years, got the LA Guns thing. So there was a couple of years where it's like, I was really busting my balls. I had this band called Super Cool that I started, that kind of got put together while I was still in Florida. And that band only lasted 8 months. We went to Japan, that was a dream come true. You know, we went to Japan for a week. We did like 5 shows over there, so that was amazing. And then out of that band, there was another band that kind of manifested from that band, and that was called Smack. It was kind of like a kind of a pop punk alternative thing. And you know, the scene in LA was really happening then, you know, like 2002, 2003. It was really, really happening. And that band almost actually got signed to Island, with an A&R person named Nancy Walker. She was really interested in us, and the band just imploded. It was not my doing. And then I was like, now what? And you know, the universe had something bigger, better for me. So literally a month after that band broke up, I got the LA Guns gig. And what's funny, Guido, is I was so removed from that kind of music, I almost didn't take it, as my head was in this, you know, kind of, you know, Replacements and Psychedelic Furs and Sex Pistols.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was basically there musically. So when the LA Guns thing came up, I was just like, you know, I don't know. I mean, I always loved that band, but then I said to myself, if I don't take this up, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. If I don't pursue this or take this, I'll regret it. And I'm really, really happy that I did take it, because I had 10 wonderful years with that band, 10 world tours, 5 awesome albums, 3 of those produced by the legendary late great Andy Johns. So it was a great experience.
Now, in that moment when you're contemplating, do I take this or do I go there? And I was going to say to you, you know, what was your journey from Toronto to Canada to LA? And, you
Yeah,
know, how do you get this? Do you have a plan? And part of it is I'm listening and it's like, well, I do have a plan, but then these other things kind of happen and then I have to rejig the plan.
yeah,
And I meet some people and maybe it's the right time, maybe it's not the right time, and something happens and I'm
yeah.
adjusting again. Is that life in music? Like when you're in that.
I think a lot of it's kind of just the where you are at the moment. I think it's your persistence and your talent is a huge thing. You got to have all of those things. Um, you know, for me, it's kind of kooky. It's like, I remember when I was like 21, and I had the first LA Guns album vinyl in my hand, in the right hand, and the left hand I had the Roxx Gang vinyl. And I said, this is the kind of stuff I want to do. It's kind of dark, dirty, glam kind of thing. And I look back and go, holy shit, I was in both of those bands. And I think what it was is that, you know, I'm really into metaphysics and
Yeah.
law of attractions. That I put that out in the universe, and the universe like literally lined that up, you know, accordingly. And I don't think that was a coincidence. I was in both those bands. You know, I manifested.
Your hesitation, were you worried about losing an identity that you had built up?
I think it's kind of interesting, because I look back and go, you know, I was always that replacement guy, you know,
Hmm.
and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the same time, it's like, you know, you're stepping into someone else's success or someone else's, you know, shoes, so to speak. You get all those accolades, but it's like, you know, I mean, yes, I did records with both of those bands, and some very critically acclaimed, especially Tales from the Strip, with
Yep.
like, so you set your mark, you know, your stamp of you, but at the same time, it's like you have nothing really to do with that band, so to speak. And I think that was, I got to a point where, you know, over the last 5 or 10 years, it's like, you know what, you know, I'm going to go out on a high note, do my own thing, as a modern, relevant artist. And that is all starting to happen. you know, that's a tough decision, because it would have been easy to just hop in some other band, you know, 7 years ago or so. And I'm like, you know what? I've done that for decades. I'm not doing it anymore, you know? And we'll move, you know, Stacey, oh, he just joined, you know, he's the next replacement guitar player in this band. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want that to be my legacy, you know?
That's
So,
it's deep, Stacey. It's
yeah,
deep.
it is,
Yeah.
because the tough decision is just like, well, get ready, because you're starting all over again.
Okay, so I was gonna ask you a bit later, but let me get it out of the way because it's not really where I wanted to focus too much of it because you got all
Right.
this other cool stuff going on. You brought up LA Guns, and I remiss in this because you know I don't want to talk too much about where you've been because it's exciting about where you're going, but folks that
Yeah,
are gonna go, hey, he's talking to Stacey Blades, right? Stacey
yeah,
David
yeah,
Blades,
of course.
LA
Yeah,
Guns. We got to talk some LA Guns.
yeah, yeah.
And I want to bring this back to Canada and hockey if I can, right? So
Oh,
I know, right? Where's Guido going with this? Look, your tenure in LA Guns, you
yeah,
wore it's a crest, right? Like you got a crest on your jersey,
yeah, big
no
time.
matter what, no matter if you're considered a replacement for the number of years, but you said it, you've got your own accolades, you put your own stamp on that band, and forever people are going to remember Tales from the Strip. Forever people are going to remember the work on Tales from the Strip, right? And other things. But
Yeah.
what does the LA Guns logo on the front of your jersey mean to you for all those years? Like even when you're moving forward, what does that mean
Yeah,
to you?
I think I was an important part of that band, in the history of that band. It was like LA Guns 2.0,
Yeah.
you know, and very grateful for it, very proud of, you know, all the records we did. Rips that covers off Tales from the Strip, Hollywood Forever. The live records really kick ass too, that we did at the Whiskey. Um, so I think it's like, you know, that time I was in that band, it was like I was identified with that band, which was a huge honor and kind of a head trip too, because it's like, here's this guy from just, you know, West End of Toronto, and you know, I'm playing in Sydney, Australia, to a, you know, a packed big venue, and I'm like, this is awesome, man. It's like, make more of this, please, you know. So I think creatively too, those two records, besides the cover and live record, those two albums really stand out as far as like the whole LA Guns catalog. Not dismissing anything um, from their early catalogs, because those are great records,
Yeah.
but I think I put my stamp on that as a band with, you know, Adam Hamilton and Scott Griffin and Phil Lewis and Steve Riley, as you know, contributing to the songwriting, the playing, and of course having Andy Johns produce those records, phenomenal sounding records. He, you know, um, so I think that's an honor. Like I look back and go, I'm really proud. I have very fond memories of that. I don't have fond memories of Hollywood Forever, because the band was getting very disconjointed at that point. And I think we had been around each other for so much, we were just had contempt for, you know.
It happens.
I mean, we had stopped in 18 months, and then we went right to that, and then we went on the world tour again. By the end of it, you know, it was like, you know, it was
you,
bad. That's
you had had
why I
enough
left the band, you know. It's just we were all hated each other.
you had had enough cheeseburgers together.
Yeah.
Um, what one more? What is your fondest LA Guns moment?
Oh God, there's so many. You know, I think the looking back and recording that album was so exciting. You know, it was so exciting. Every day going in there was just like the energy we had, just this excitement, because the songs were so good, and it was very kind of new. We weren't, you know, the band wasn't trying to recreate Hollywood vampires or Cocked and Loaded. It had this
Right.
whole kind of newish vibe to it, but it was very classic sounding too. And I think that's what was so excited. I think there's so many proud moments. Like I said, you know, touring the world with them, you know, getting to go to Australia twice, and play in Tokyo, and you know, playing packed concert in London, and so many great moments, you know. Yeah, there
It,
was just so many great memories, especially playing with all the other bands like Skid Row
oh,
um,
right. Yeah.
and play with Whitesnake and Scorpions and just a lot of amazing memories. Yeah,
Yeah, I was gonna say some great memories there, Stacey.
yeah.
So you've got all these amazing accolades and you know, you're rocking around the world. But there's another part of Stacey David Blades, and it's the teacher, Stacey David Blades. I understand that you have some students of rock.
Yeah, quite a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
Been teaching guitar for a long time, since the mid-90s. And I didn't go to school for it or anything. You know, I just teach the way my teachers taught me, which is a very fundamental, straight approach with a little theory, and I love it. You know, and not only that, it's a constant learning curve. You know, whether you have a beginner or an advanced student, or you know, an intermediate student, and you're always playing. You know, I play guitar every day. It's awesome. You
Now,
know.
when you were learning,
Hmm.
um, were you playing guitar? Like how often were you playing guitar? Like when you were first starting out, young Stacey David Blades, are
Yeah.
you playing guitar every day, all day, whenever you
Yeah.
could? Or are you like La Bamba or you Los Lobos carrying your guitar to the beach and all that stuff? Or
You know, I would take breaks from it because it's like as a kid, you know, I had to do my homework and you know, I did like you know, to play sports and stuff like that. But it was always every day it was in my hands. And you know, I'd taken piano steadily for 2 years when I was between the ages of 9 and 11. So I was kind of already well-schooled musician at that point. So I got good on guitar really quickly from all the piano study. Um, so very blessed to have been doing, you know, playing music since I was a little kid. Um, but yeah, I was that was the only thing I was good at other than, you know, golf. It was either golf or
or guitars?
like not you know, didn't do well in school. I was just a daydreamer, you know. They're like, what's wrong with him?
He's thinking about guitars. Do you
So
ever get eh?
that was kind of it was that it was it that was it. It was nothing else, you know. It was just like I'm gonna make it as a musician if it kills me, you know. So
Has I so that was always your plan then? Music was always your
yeah,
plan.
yeah.
Has any student ever driven you off the proverbial edge when you're trying to teach them, or is it all pretty cool?
No, it's just like you got to have a level of patience because it's like you were there. It's like you were there, like you know, you were that guy. And I had a kind of funny moment, you know, and I was teaching Stairway to Heaven to one of my students who was
Wow.
older, like 60, and he's been with me for about a year. So a lot of acoustic songs, you know. But and I had this moment. I remember my teacher when I was 14 trying to teach me the solo to Stairway to Heaven, and I just didn't care. I wanted to learn. I wanted to play Ozzy and Judas Priest, and you know, even though I, you know, as a kid I grew up in Zeppelin, but by the time I was 13 or 14,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't want to play. That was old to me. I wanted to play all this new stuff. I wanted to play, you know, Judas Priest and you know, Pat Benatar and Rush and all this other stuff. And I remember him just like, "Duh, forget it." You know, I was just I couldn't care. I'm like, I just thought as a teacher, like I had that moment where I was just like, oh man, that poor guy, he probably just wanted to throttle the shit out of me.
Yeah, on the stairway to heaven.
Yeah.
That's right on. So guitar isn't your only skill. You ventured out into book writing at some point as well. You had a book out called
Hmm.
Snake Eyes: Confessions of a Rock Star. That was back in '09. And I thought you had plans to re-release it with you were gonna put some additions, and I was actually trying to find the book, and it's
Yeah.
not available for purchase, except I found a copy on eBay, and
For
they
a
want
hundred,
$115, man.
and I don't see a cent of it.
But the book got good reviews, and so it's not out
Yeah.
there. Any plans to put it back out, or?
Um, I took it off the market because I was years ago shopping I had kind of, I wouldn't say rewritten it, but additionally written another 7 chapters or something
Wow.
like that. I think I just got to a point. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do this again. It's like I already, put myself out there, and I never re put it back on the market. And I'm like, it is what it is. And, I'm glad I did it. Looking back, it's like I wish I'd kind of spent a little bit more time. Um, but yeah, it's an okay book. I mean, I don't consider myself a writer, like, because I'm not. I just was writing down my life story.
That's
You
right
know,
on.
there's a lot of crazy moments to it. But it's funny because like somebody that gets that now, reads that now, it's like the timeline ends like 15 years ago. It's like, you know,
We want
lots.
more. We want more. We want more, Stacey.
So you never, maybe.
All right. All right.
Yeah.
Listen, you've talked about the different bands that you've gone through some changes, and
Mhm.
you've gone through a couple of iterations, and when it comes to musical direction,
Yeah.
how do you know? How do you know as a musician that you want to change musical direction, or that you need to change? Like, do you hit a wall? Is there an epiphany? What happens? Like you said, well, man, I was playing Sex Pistols, and I had to change my thinking, and I was gonna go play this other style. But then you're playing that style, and then 10 years go by, and you go, I got to change again. I feel like
Yeah.
changing. What brings that on?
I think it speaks to you internally, with your musical soul. I like lots of different kinds of music, and for for years, from 2003 to you know 2016, I was playing all that, you know stuff from the 80s, and it's like I got to a point. I'm like, I can't play this kind of music anymore. I'm burned out on it. It wasn't doing anything for me. Not to say anything bad about it, because I had a lot of fun memories. I think I reached a point where it's just like, you plateau with certain something, and some people can play, you know a certain kind of music for forever, and they're cool with that. For me, I'm like a kind of a chameleon. I'm always like changing, and it's like I always kind of looking at a bigger, you know picture to paint. And I think it was what was it, like 2016 or something like that. I had this band, this all-star band called Let It Rock, and I just kind of remember one night I was playing, and I kind of had this moment where just time stood still, and I kind of looked around, and I looked down at me, and I just, and I looked with my ears. I'm like, I've, what have I done? I've lost myself.
Hmm.
And from that moment, I just kind of immediately changed. I want to go back to that guy in early LA who had just this fire up his ass and was playing this kind of artsy, glassy, cool, punky kind of rock. And that's the guy I've gone back to.
Hmm.
Something spoke to me. So immediately after that, I was like, I retired all the old 80s guitars, and got back to playing Les Pauls again, and Tellys. Started playing, just fell in love with playing Telecasters, and I just kind of started writing music again like I used to, when I was in my early 30s. And
Hmm.
it felt really exciting and refreshing. I think I just needed a change, and uh, a change of my persona as well. I changed my whole kind of look, and my whole vibe, and I felt like it was time to do that. And it just spoke to me for me to do that. And
Self-reflection, right?
yeah, Yeah,
So
and I'm
cool.
running, you
I'm
know,
digging the
I think,
hat. I'm digging the hat, by the way. That's cool.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's my singer Peter Summit has this amazing clothing company called Home Apparel that dates back to the late '60s with John Lennon,
Oh,
and um, there's actually some really cool pictures of John Lennon in a Home T-shirt. And so Pete's got this great clothing company, very vintage, high end kind of stuff. So this is one of his hats from his company.
oh, you should shoot us over the link. We'll put it in the notes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as you're going through the changes and the evolution and the self-reflection
Mhm.
and you're reinventing yourself, right?
Yeah. Totally.
Um, you do end up finding some success with a new band called Electric Radio Kings, and
Mhm.
in 2019, you guys released an album. I think it's called Purr,
Yeah.
and things seem to be going good. You got some traction, and then it's like
Over.
things got ghosted, like you guys, everything stopped, and I was like, and 2019, 2020, we're getting into
Yeah.
pandemic time. Was it pandemic related? Do we
No, that Guido, that band was forced. It started from a session. I had been working with this singer from New Orleans. In fact, we were the last two people to work with Andy Johns before he died. So that guy had called me, Paul Christiani had called me up again to do a session. I said, well, let's you come to Vegas, because I was living in Vegas at the time, and this would have been 2017, so I'd already been here for about 4 or 5 years. So we wrote a bunch of songs, and they were like really really good, and we recorded them. We got a couple other guys on the session, and it was just so good that I'm like, this just can't go to waste, man. And I just kind of knew this is gonna bite me in the ass. And I said to him, come on, we gotta do a band with this stuff. And he agreed, because I knew in the long run that this was not gonna last. I knew. And it didn't. He had quit already like 6 months into it. He quit. And then his friend talked him back into it. And I'm like, this thing's on borrowed time. But at the same time, all this crazy, great stuff was happening. We were getting played on Alice Cooper's radio show. We were getting all this national airplay. And then all of a sudden, we're doing a record with Mike Gillies. And then we re-recorded a version of Amy Winehouse's Back to Black. And then that was like, came out so well. It was like, oh, I guess that's going to be the single. And, the singer Paul had some money, so he'd sunken into like radio promotion. And next thing you know, it's like, wow, we just entered 86 on Billboard's mainstream rock charts. And we watched it climb over 3.5, 4 weeks from 86 all the way up to 28. Then, this label that was a division of Universal, they wanted to sign us. Then Larry Mazur, who used to manage Kiss, Lamb of God, he was Cinderella's old manager. He was going to sign us to his huge company. It was all happening. And right when all that stuff happened, the other shoe fell. And the singer, we played this huge show in Houston, and he was like, screw you guys, I quit. That was it. And I just I'm like, what the fuck just happened? I knew this was going to bite me in the ass, and boy did it. So it's record stiffed.
didn't get signed? Yeah.
Larry Mazur did not sign to a management deal, and that was it. Done. Over. Just 3 years. Just I mean, it's nice to have the Billboard plaque up on my wall, but you know what? I look back at the time, I didn't understand it, but I do now, and that was all meant to happen to give birth to Crashing Wayward. And I'm very grateful, because that band was not meant to be to begin with. So it was a good training process for this band. So yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, you went through the experience, and so many highs and lows, like
Yeah,
as you're doing that, right? So many highs and lows. But I guess something that you can look back on and leverage it with Crashing Wayward, and you
yeah,
guys, you are crashing. I say crashing. I don't know if you're crashing. Crashing Wayward sounded like a really cool bunch, and we're gonna get to a bunch of that
yeah,
in a bit. I wanted to pause, and I had mentioned the pandemic,
mm,
and I wanted to ask something.
yeah, yeah,
Um, the pandemic, Stacey, it impacted people in a lot of different ways, and um, before you and I started, we talked
yeah,
about some personal loss before we kicked
mhm,
this thing off officially. Your wife, Paula Ann Motter, passed away on November 19th, 2021, and it
yeah,
was due to COVID-19. And I'm
yes,
sincerely
yes,
sorry for your loss. And you talked about music in this whole time period. Paula was a very talented esthetician and an
mm,
artist. She had her own studio. You know, while you're going through all of this, and then that happens, the previous band kind of breaks up. Paula, that happens to Paula. How does her passing influence your music? And I guess more importantly, as you and I have been talking, we've been talking a lot more about life direction, right?
yeah,
How does this change your life direction? And you've had other things happen recently too.
yeah. I think it was, you know, what saddens me is that she was my biggest champion, and she saw the birth of the band, and we had actually gotten separated, not by my choice, but 4 months before she passed away. And it saddens me that she never got to see the development of the band becoming on our way to being successful. I know she does from above, but that was tough. Life changed a lot for me in 2021, and it was really the band that kept me together. And if it wasn't for the band, God, I don't know where I'd be. You um, and I'm so grateful for everybody, and Pete and Dave and Carl and Sean and the producer Mike, our label. Those guys got me through, but we all had these hardships, just in the course of the 2.5 years. It's like, you know, Dave, our other guitar player's mom just recently, passed away 3, 4 months ago. Mike, our producer, his mom passed away. Lost a couple of dogs. Paula passed away. My father just passed away. It's just all these things, and it's like it's this test,
Hmm.
and but it's brought us, really close together. But one cool thing is there was a song that Pete and I wrote after Paula and I split up, and it took a little different direction after she died, and it's called Velvet Drawn, and you know it's going to be dedicated to her, and it's kind of about it's loss of love, life, and dealing with that. And we put it as the last track on the album, which would be the 11th track. And her birthday was 11/11, so um, it's very proud of that song. It's very, very emotional, kind of dark, kind of alternative ballad, I'd say. But I keep pushing forward, and you know, um, like I said, if I hadn't had the band, I mean, her death damn near destroyed me. So I'm very grateful for the guys, and so you have to keep pushing forward.
And you've worked it into your music as part of the
Yes.
I guess reflection and dealing with it.
Yeah.
You did a show with Ryan Roxy, and
Hmm.
in that show he called you a survivor. Do
Hmm.
you see yourself as a survivor?
I think so. It's more like kind of like just all the obstacles. It's like doing music. It's like, full time or at this level. It's like we'll test your spirit, it'll test your soul, it'll test your will. And I think that's just like, though that statement is like, yeah, I've barreled through so many different climates to get where I'm at. It's like, there ought to be a survivor badge. Because some people would be just like, I'm done, I'm done.
Packing it in, but not
Yeah,
Stacey David
I
Blades.
remember flying home from Houston after that happened with Electric Radio Kings, and I'm just staring at the seat in front of me, and I'm like, fucking now what? I'm supposed to get this, call Larry Nazar on Monday and like get this management deal thing in the go. And now I got to tell him, oh, the singer just quit the band. Band's over. What do I tell the label? Like, our album had just gotten released via Universal that weekend. I'm like, oh, okay, the band just broke up. I was done. I was going to quit. I was going to quit music. So yeah, that's like kind of, yeah, total survivor, man.
You made me think of that. Well, there was a movie a number of years back. It might have been called Rockstar, where in the middle of the concert, the singer just walks off the stage, and that's it. He's gone. And then they say, well, where did he go? We don't know. He just left.
So some people, they're just like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where'd he go? We don't know. He just left.
Yeah, I'm not a quitter, I'll complain, but I just have this, voracious spirit that just, gotta see this thing through if it kills me, kind of thing. And that's since I was a kid. It was like that.
Stacey, I got all serious on you there for a couple of questions. Let me bring back and let's have a little bit of fun. As an example, if I had to pick my rock and roll parents, I think I would pick Joan Jett and John Bon Jovi. So mom and dad, and it'd be a real close. Like I think John Mellencamp might have been my like stepdad or maybe uncle or something. Who would your rock and roll parents be?
I think Pat Benatar and Iggy Pop.
Wow, what a combination.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any uncles in there?
Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, that's wild, man. Iggy Pop and Pat Benatar.
Yeah.
That's a good combo.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that one. Look, we know, like we've been talking about it all night here. Born and raised in Canada. Were there any aspects or musicians from the Canadian music scene that influenced your guitar playing or style? And then you talked a little bit about earlier going to the US, and did you notice a difference in the American style playing versus Canadian style? Is there such a thing?
I think it was like I took the best of both because I was, of course, certainly influenced by lots of not just American players, but English players too. As far as Canadian, Alex Lifeson was a huge influence on me. Rush, I loved Rush, listened to Rush all the time. But then it was like really influenced by like Glenn Tipton as well, was, English player, Judas Priest. But then I was like huge Neil Sean fan as well, and Neil Giraldo from Pat Benatar. So my influences aren't really the usual like Hendrix, Jimmy Page, Eddie Van Halen. Yeah, I took stuff from, like, as we all do, from lots of different guitar players, but I'd say my influences were different than, say, somebody who grew up in LA or grew up in London, so I kind of get my artistic flair, even rhythmically with chords and stuff, definitely from Alex Lifeson. I loved how he just utilized space and like modes, and he was such a unique guitar player, and that really spoke to me, especially as a teenager and stuff like that. And I was really into Randy Rhoads as well. So I liked a lot of different guitar players, I kind of would always try to learn something different from everybody, whether it's, you know, a bluesy kind of Hendrixy type thing, or that from Jimmy Page, or maybe like a kind of, you know, a diminished minor type thing, classical thing from Randy Rhoads, or, you know, a fusion-esque thing that Neil Schon kind of had, you know, because he played with Santana as a teenager, you know. So like, but there were certain guitar players that really, really spoke to me. And, you know, I wanted to be Neil Schon, you know, mixed with Alex Lifeson. That's who I wanted to be. Those were my heroes, you know.
Right on.
So, but then, you know, as a teenager, young teenager was really influenced by all the LA metal that was coming out. What an exciting time that was in 83, 84, 85, right? Especially being 14 years old.
Yeah.
So that became a big influence on me at that time. But that was, for me, that was just kind of short-lived during those years, you know, playing like that. I kind of, you know, through the 90s, I completely ditched that style. You know?
It was an image thing at that age, and you kind of get
Yeah,
over
that
the image
guitar
thing.
player kind of really went out of style in the 90s. You know, it wasn't about that. And then what was cool was like, you know, when Stone Temple Pilots came out, I became a huge fan. They're my favorite band, actually, still to this day. And what I loved about that band is that they just embroidered these and embodied all these cool, great styles of like Queen and, you know, Cheap Trick and
Yeah.
Zeppelin. I'm like, how perfect is this? And they wrote great songs.
They were
And
versatile.
versatile. And then as they were like Bowie too, like they had a lot of Bowieisms in there, especially Scott Weiland. And I loved how, you know, they were like Bowie and U2. They just changed at every record. And I'm like, you know, this is my kind of band. And I think it took that was a big influence on me. That and Sponge were huge influences on me in the 90s. So, and Candlebox. So I think I took a lot of those and injected them into Crashing Wayward, especially the STP influence. You know?
Let's talk Crashing Wayward. So
Yep.
you've mentioned their names a few times. The lineup has Peter Summit on vocals, David Harris alongside you, Stacey David Blades on guitars, Shon McKee on drums, Carl Rather on bass,
Yep.
and you're being produced by longtime 26 years Metallica mixing engineer Mike Gillies.
Yes.
Now,
Who's also
I'm trying to, who's also Canadian, right? Yeah, woohoo, Canada. We're Canada representing here.
yeah, that's right.
How did all of this? How did all of you come together? Like, is it a phone call? Is it you ran into
Yep.
each other at a bar? Like, how did that happen?
It was a godsend, honestly, Guido. After you know, Electric Radio Kings imploded, all these guys just came into my life, and it was incredible how it all happened. And Peter and I actually knew each other. We used to hang out. He's from San Diego, and he was in. He had a couple of really cool bands in the early 2000s, and he used to always come up to LA. And he was friends with my band members in Smack, and we always used to hang out at the Dragonfly and stuff. And we lost touch. So it was a mutual friend. It was a friend of his, Stephen Brundage, who put us in touch. And I wasn't making the connection. And, you know, then I heard Pete sing. And then when I realized it was him, I was like, oh, hell yeah, there is hope. And I remember, you know, when we talked on the phone the first time, and he's like, you know, he's like, don't fuck around, Stace, I'm your guy. I'm like, fucking right you are, you know. I just knew what a badass he was. And he's just, he's such a gift, just not only as a friend, but as a bandmate and a creative force and the you know, the front man. He's awesome. He's so unique. You know, he's Scott Weiland, David Bowie, and Michael Jackson and Freddie Mercury rolled into, you know, one 6'4" tattoo badass.
he's got a front man look, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
So people really are, but you know, everybody else is so incredibly important and unique in this band, and it's like a classic GNR kind of thing. Like we all have all these different influences that we bring into the band, and not one of them is the same. And it all just works. It's so unique, and just completely blessed to have this band.
It's funny, it's Stacey, it's funny you said GNR because as I was listening to your music and I was actually thinking to myself, because I didn't know how you guys got together, right? And
Yeah,
in my head I was like, there's the old story of GNR and how these little pieces kind of came in and they found each other, and
yeah,
then you kind of listen to the music, and I actually thought about that. I was like, I wonder if, they seem to have all these different elements happening in the music. And I
yeah,
have some other comparisons that I'm going to wait to
sure,
when I get
yeah,
to that question, but it's just
sure.
interesting. So I was gonna say to you, well, what makes Crashing Wayward different?
I think it's funny because if you ask five different people what is the band, what do you think the band sounds like, you get five different answers. Um, we've been compared to Shinedown, to U2, to Soundgarden, to Stone Temple Pilots, to the Killers, and to the Cult. So I think it's got all these familiar elements that are unique from unique bands all mixed in together. So I think that it really separates us from some of the newer or alternative bands, because it's like you hear all these familiar, wonderful elements. And the songs are fairly unique as well from a guitar perspective, because Dave, the other guitar player, he plays on all these alternate tunings. So the riffs sound really different because he's in like open E and I'll be in like standard drop D. So you layer all these really interesting parts, which were completely different style guitar players, and it just has this uniqueness to it. It's just kind of interesting how it all came together. We just kind of write. There's four very strong writers in this band, and it just comes out the way it comes out. I can't explain it really. It's
Do
just
you do you guys
pretty
hang
cool.
out? Do you guys hang out when you're not making music?
Usually, I mean, life tends to be busy and weeks kind of go
Yeah.
by. So we don't. It's kind of ironic. My Carl lives right next door to me, so I really waved through the window at him. He moved in the house literally next door to me
Yeah,
last
right
summer.
on.
It was kind of funny, him and his wife, because he was living in LA. So him and his wife moved out here in June, and then I do see Pete quite a bit. Shon ever so often, and Dave kind of is here once in a while, but his home base is kind of in Ohio. So, um, but yeah, the band sounds great live too. It's just like a lot of bands, yeah, they make great records, but live, this is a great live sounding band as well. So
Yeah, we're not just talking a studio band here. You guys are
yeah,
going to be a live band as well.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. And I think that's we're very strong live band. So that comes across too when people see us. They're like, whoa, wow. So it's really firing on every aspect. So we're all very very blessed and grateful to have this.
So I gotta mention this, and you said Scott Wieland a couple of times, and I look, I had no idea that you were the STP was your favorite
Mm,
band or anything like that. And you mentioned, hey, when people hear us and they say they hear this and they hear that.
yeah,
I actually, when I first listened to Breathe, which is your single, and we're gonna hear that on the show as well. Um, I actually I had a little bit of Scott Wieland and that Velvet Revolver type of feel to the
yeah,
song. And I it like and when I say that, I a lot of respect because I remember hearing Velvet Revolver at the time and thinking,
Mhm.
I love this sound. This is fresh and it's
Yeah,
new and
yeah,
it's something different. And that's how I felt when I heard your song, when Crashing Wayward's Breathe song. I was like, this is fresh. This is new. This is bringing in
yeah,
all these elements.
yeah.
I feel like it's stirring a whole bunch of things in here. It's not cookie cutter. It's
Right.
I got all these different things happening and
Mhm.
I'm digging it, right? Um, is was that just it just happened, Stacey,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, because we have all these, different, influences as songwriters. So you bring in different ideas. Like Pete and I have a very fondness for early '80s new wave. Duran Duran and Depeche Mode, and bands like that. So you'll hear those kind of influences in some of our songs,
Mm,
where it almost has like a Killer's vibe, which is the same kind of thing. It's got that new romantic kind of new or old new wave type of approach. Then there's other songs where we have where it's got a heaviness to it, almost like Soundgarden, Sabbathy. So
mm,
one song doesn't sound like the other. Like you put the record on, it's very diverse, and that comes from all the different songwriting ideas, as there's four very strong writers in this band. So it's exciting because it's not just the same song idea that comes in one after another.
over and over. Yeah.
So that's why it's just like when people hear Breathe, it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of got this U2 element, you know, um, early U2, and but then it's like it's kind of got this heaviness of like Filter and Soundgarden, Um, so yeah, it's we just love sound and layers and this artistic kind of void that we just throw in. We write for the song, we write like it just happens. It's cool. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just really
But
cool.
I keep making it cool and keep making it happen because I think folks are gonna love this stuff. What
Yeah.
does Mike Gillies bring to Crashing Wayward as you put your stamp on the industry now?
He's an amazing engineer and producer. His ideas, it's like, he'll just he just has all these incredible ideas. Yeah, I sent you Stranger Days, and that was a song that Pete and I wrote that brought in, and it was like very different sounding than when it came out, like, and it's got this ELO vibe to it, which I love. But Mike came up, we had recorded a certain way and it was just not vibing. And then I remember going to the studio and Mike had it picked up his acoustic guitar. He's like, Stace, I want you to play this. And he played this just amazing arpeggiated thing that was kind of like ELO meets, Goodbye Blue Sky by Pink Floyd. And I was like, dude, that's just amazing. So he brings all these wonderful musical ideas. He tries everything, and at the end of the day, there's like, 30 guitar parts. It's like, you know, it took a long time to mix this record for that, but it's like he has a thing like me where he grew up in Canada, so he grew up in a lot of the same kind of music, so to speak. So Mike's all about exploring. Hey, let's try this, let's try that, try this, and he just takes the song, and he's like, if he hears something, he'll say that doesn't make sense to me. You
Hmm.
need to change this. So he brings out, I think, a lot of creativity and soundscapes and arrangements and stuff like that. He's amazing. Yeah.
Rocket, Mike, rocket. Now
Yeah.
you said Stranger Days. We're gonna hear that in the show. We're gonna hear another one, Disco Kills.
Yes. So that was the first Guido. That was the first song brought into band as Crashing Wayward. We were actually I had reformed this with there was a the drummer from Electric Radio Kings was in it, so Shon wasn't in it yet, and we had actually played two shows in LA and Vegas before the pandemic hit.
Wow.
but then, the pandemic hit, and then, we got Shon, and that's when Pete said, dude, man, you got to change the name. You got to let go of the life raft of that. He was right. I was like, okay. So Disco Kills, Dave brought that in, and we were like, whoa, this is really cool riff. And this is when I approached Shon about joining. I said, well, this is kind of what we're working on. He goes, dude, that sounds like Rival Sons. I go, yeah, that's kind of what we're gonna go for. He goes, I'm in, And I already played with Shon a bunch of times. We were doing this country thing called Nashville Stars Live, and so he was a no brainer, But he heard that song and he heard that riff. Dave demoed it up, and we were like, yeah. So that song's pretty special because that is the start of Crashing Wayward, is that song.
Disco Kills. We're gonna hear it. Yep. We're gonna hear that. And then the third one we're gonna hear, and I said that I gave the name away before, and it's been playing, Breathe. It's getting solid national airplay in the USA. Hey, I've been spinning it over on the pathradio.com. It's getting good response there. It's climbing the charts, even topping some. Look, the song has this sort of reinvigorating come home to rock vibe. I think the scene is starving for the sound. That's my opinion in terms of the rock world. And when I hear it, Stacey, I think to myself, you guys can open with that song and say, here we are. Or you can also close with it and say, you're not going to forget us. Right? Are you closing with it? Yeah.
Pete's vocal performance just killing on that.
Phenomenal.
Interesting thing about that song, that was a song that Carl had been sitting on for 10 years, and it was very different. It was in a different key. It was in G sharp, and it was kind of more Foo Fighters-ish punky. And once Mike got a hold of it, he dismantled the whole thing. Key was changed. He totally changed the vocal melody, which is what you hear Pete sing. Mike came up with that whole cadence.
Wow.
And he goes, we're going to do this song in 5/4. I go, what does that mean? we stumbled through this thing for weeks, because it's basically a 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 4 5 1 2, and I still to this day have to go. I've never done a song in 5/4, so that's another thing that kind of Mike brought, the way he thinks differently, and it just works.
Yeah, I'm listening to it, and like I said, it's got the sound, and it's funny you're talking about the rhythm of it, because as I'm listening to it, I'm going, it does sound different. It's got and then I'm thinking, how's he doing that? And then I went to the lyrics, and I was like, let me read the lyrics. How is the lyrics are getting spliced a certain way, and it's got it's just really comes together in a really unique way.
Yeah, and it's a song of hope. Pete is an amazing lyric writer, and it's a song of hope and tolerance, and after what the world's been through, and still going through, it's just like like we all need to like, God, being suffocated, gotta breathe.
There is a line in there that says, "And I feel alive for the first time."
Yeah,
and it just, when that hits, that pre-chorus hits,
yeah,
it's like you guys hit this pocket. As a fan listening to it, I'm like, man, the band just hits a pocket. And then I'm thinking to myself, does that happen because you all feel alive for the first time again when you guys come together?
I think it was like kind of out of the ashes of ERK. I think there's a hidden meaning in there too. Out of the ashes of ERK, and Crashing Wayward. It's like this kind of thing. I think I kind of take that. I don't know if Pete had that in mind. Yeah, it's just like, I love this band, and I love the songs, and I love playing with every band, and it's a nice change. It's not forced. It just very creatively flows, ease and flow, and it's not, like I said, nothing's contrived or forced. It's like we are who we are, and it feels great.
Now you guys got signed?
Yeah, so last fall, company RFK Media signed us, and Ron Keel, the label president. Ron's been around a long, long time, of course, successful musician himself over the years.
Yeah.
He heard Stranger Days, and he was like, he said that's the best song he's heard in 20 years. And he goes, you guys wrecked my week. He goes, I must have listened to this 12 times a day, if not more. And, you know, knowing Ron, and he's just one of the hardest working guys. And like, we all just kind of said, you know, we can keep shopping this around or go with a bigger label, but this guy will work his fingers to the bone for us. And he's got a great staff. And, you know, he loves the band so much. He wants us to be super, super successful. He's like, I'm going to launch you guys into the next stratosphere. And that was nice, because it's like, you know, you don't get that a lot from other companies who may like you. Yeah, we're going to do this, but they're not going to work their ass off for you.
It's personal, the
I
personal
get to
touch.
experience that with, you know, been with a ton of labels, but so it's hit or miss, you know. So we liked that from Ron, you know, and the company, that, and we knew that, yeah, this guy's going to bust his ass.
Right on. Well,
Like,
congrats on the label.
yeah.
So you're working on an album. Can you give us some teasers, titles, or timeframes? Or are you going to
Sure.
tour the album? Are you going to come to Canada?
Yes, we'd love to. Absolutely. The album will be released on digital, CD, and vinyl May 12th. The vinyl, I don't think, will be come out May 12th. It'll probably come out in the summer. There's 11 songs. Some of the titles are, every song is really, really strong. There's a great song called Tilly, which is about my friend's daughter who took her life a couple years ago. There's Death on Holidays, badass, Mouth to God's Ear. That's going to be the opening title track. Yeah, that's what we open our set with usually.
Oh, right on.
Of course, you've heard Disco Kills, Breathe, Stranger Days. There's an amazing song called Staring at Ceilings. It's got very Soundgarden kind of Zeppelin vibe to it. There's you know, the song I was talking about earlier that's dedicated to Paula Velvet's Drawn.
Right.
And there's a another great song called Closer, which has a total kind of Killers vibe to it. So yeah, there's a lot of it's all killer, no filler, Rudo.
I love it. I love it. And excited. So if anybody heard the circling, that was my pen. I circled May 12th on the date.
Yeah.
That's when the album comes out. Crashing Wayward, new album comes out May 12th.
Yeah. On RFK Media. Yeah.
Hey, Stacey, I want to do something that I haven't done in a long time on the show, and it's a rapid fire. I'm going to ask you some fast questions. You give me fast answers under 7 seconds for each. Okay. And we're going to call this 7 in 7 seconds with Stacey. You good?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, number 1, Toronto Maple Leafs or the Las Vegas Golden Knights?
I think Golden Knights, because I've been living in the States a long time. So.
Golden Knights. Rush or April Wine?
Rush.
Poutine or Montreal smoked meat?
Poutine.
Gibson guitars or Gretsch?
Gibson.
Marshall amp or Fender?
Marshall. On
stage, leather pants or jeans?
Jeans.
Beaver tails or Timbits?
What's a beaver tail? what are those?
Beaver tails? They're like a like a dough, and then you put Nutella or something on it.
Oh, okay. And what's a Timbit? Is that something to do with Tim Hortons donuts or something?
Yeah, the holes that they knock.
Oh, I got it.
Timbits?
Yeah.
All right, no beaver tails. We got him on one of those, eh? Sorry, man. Look, man, I want to thank you for coming on the show and for giving us Stacey David Blades personal and unplugged. And before I let you back, I know you're got a lot of things going on right now, Stacey. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with that I haven't covered?
Yeah, just to keep an eye out for the album. And Heathcliff is he's huge Crashing Wayward fan, aren't you, buddy? Crashing Wayward.
The cat, the pussy cat is going
Yes.
wild.
And yeah, just keep an eye on great things to come, and we're working our butts off, and we'd love to come up to Canada and play. That would be a dream come true, especially being from there. And just the new single will be out sometime after the album with a video, and it's a great record. So just want to thank all the fans and all the press, and just the support has been amazing, so
Crashing Wayward and landing another solid outing in the rock and roll crypt of credibility is Stacey David Blades, who gave us more than a peek behind the guitar as we journeyed from Toronto to Los Angeles and back. He's kickstarted another leg of his lifelong musical tour alongside bandmates Peter Summit, David Harris, Shon McKee, and Carl Rather. We're going to hear more from Stacey David Blades and Crashing Wayward on thepathradio.com and their song Breathe, among the others, right here on themonthlysocial.com as we wait for more songs to come. Thank you, Stacey. I hope you'll come back and keep on rocking.
Absolutely. Pleasure being on the show, and thanks for having me.